What are you trying to accomplish? Why does it matter to you? Where do we have to move the customer from here to here? What do they need to know? What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. I am your host, Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway Exhibits and Events. Today, I have Stuart Fingerhut with me. He is the creative director of events and experiences at the Production Club, and we have a super cool show for you all around design, experiential, brand storytelling, and really the fun, cool aspect of, I think, events and trade shows and activations and experiential marketing. Stuart, welcome, man. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm super excited to be here, and thanks so much for the opportunity.
Awesome, man. I'm going to brag on you for a little bit of second just so people know how cool you are. But essentially, man, you're working at Production Club, right? But previously, you've worked at Zarnowski. You've worked at George P. Johnson. You've worked on projects with Amazon, YouTube, North Face, BMW, Samsung, Deadpool 2, Chicago and LA Auto Show. You have a really wide range of creative depth and talent of the things you've worked on. I think it's important starting here to kind of give people that background to know that you've worked in a lot of different pockets, right? And been creative in those pockets. Where I want to kick us off is like generally just smooth us into this, right? So brand storytelling, experiential marketing, in my eyes, that is essentially what people are doing at trade shows, events, activations when you physically go do something in person. Tell me how you got started and just kind of like your overall just like thoughts on it, why you like it, and what you enjoy about it.
Awesome. I think maybe I'll go with the second part first. And I think, really expand upon what experiential is these days. And to me, I don't think it's limited to a trade show or an event. We're seeing it everywhere. Coachella just happened. I saw an Alaska Airlines activation, food companies, beverage companies, makeup companies. We go to sporting events. There's some sort of a brand experience. We go to anything in the real world, even in the spaces that are traditionally not marketing heavy, museums, even in terms of, some hospitality areas too. So for me, it's and what I'm seeing and what's been trending is how do brands, companies connect with the consumer? And the consumer could be B2B, it could be B2C. But I think what we're finding, and it's not really been spoken a whole lot, but banner ads, television ads, the stuff that's very flat. There's no real engagement. So all these companies, whether they're pushing a product, a service, or their brand itself, for example, if it's a brand that wants to talk about themselves in some way, if it's Dyson launching a new product, if it's a service, maybe like Airbnb, they want to reach a consumer and want to put themselves in front. So there's really no better way than going where they are. Music events, right? Sporting events, retail, what's happening in retail experiential, super exciting, dynamic.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the things scratching the surface of what's out there and what's been popping off for probably the last 5 years after COVID. You're really seeing it. What Louis Vuitton does in that space, traveling
Yeah.
exhibits that are part museum, part retail are super exciting. Me personally, my background is in marketing. Spent about a decade in the action sports industry. It's what got me to California.
Nice.
I went back
X
to
game
school.
stuff or any X game
Mostly in the
stuff?
cycling world, mountain
Cycling.
bike.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Very
mountain
nice.
bike world, doing things, everything from working for an international race team, traveling around the world, going to events like the Red Bull Rampage, mountain bike races. I'm a big trail runner. I love the
Mhm.
outdoors, so personal areas of interest. And then I layered that on top with spatial design. I went to a school called Art Center in Pasadena. And really, that's what it is. It's the two-layer cake of marketing mixed with physical spatial design. And then how do we bring brands to life? Sometimes it's super abstract. Stuff I do for Amazon is cloud computing, data, things that are not tangible, but how do you make an experience? And then, like
Mhm.
you said, some stuff in the auto show world, new cars, something hands-on with Google or T-Mobile. Here's a new device. So it really spreads a super wide spectrum. And now more than ever, the opportunities are just limitless. And I'm super pumped. I've never been more pumped, honestly.
That's great. Explain to me like I'm a child, essentially in your role, right? A creative director of events and experiences. When a company comes to the production club in your company and you get put on a job or a project, an event, activation, a festival, a trade show booth, you name it. It could be anything like we're saying. What's your role? What do you do? What do you actually do, work on, and create?
I don't want to say overboard, but as a CD, you're kind of involved or required to do whatever is necessary at any moment, whether it's the start of a project, concept design phase. Then there's production design phase, bringing those ideas to life. And then certainly when we do what I call event execution, boots on the ground from the minute trucks are loading in to the minute the event's over. So for me as creative director, it's really kind of leading, but also identifying and being that first seed of an idea. We get a brief, mostly, depending on the projects over the years. Sometimes it's a little bit more ambiguous, but we get a brief and then really distill down objectives, outcomes, definitely audience, that type of information. And then, okay, what are we trying to accomplish here? Is this a one-time thing? Is this a 5-day event? Is it traveling around the country or around the world? Is it permanent? And really using a brief to help, it's our roadmap, understanding the audience, creating a story. And that's what I say. I say story is everything. What's the story? Those are the big questions. And then the second biggest is who's it for? Because it's not for me. If it's B2C, it's very different than B2B. But what's the story? And then who's it for? And from that, we just kind of figure out what we want to do. Creatively speaking, it's starting from the very, very foundational level. Okay, what are our creative concepts? Whether it's a brainstorm with the team or whether it's just from me as an individual, what do we want to do and how are we going to translate this information to a physical space? And then really guiding and leading that throughout every phase of creative development, production, if we work with vendors or partners. And I'm kind of repeating myself, but then being there during the actual event itself, giving client walkthroughs, helping them understand what this experience is going to be during the different phases of the project, keeping vibes high and morale high for people, helping steer it in the right direction. Budgets are super important too, making sure we're not going over budget, but we're also not leaving too much money on the table that we can use to create a great experience. So I think there's not a lot of compartmentalization being a creative director, very creative, but also you got to direct. You got to be able to have a point of view, guide people, and steer this project so that the outcome is something that everyone's really, really happy about and the audience really resonates with.
I think a good note to make for our audience is something that they hear all the time that I talk about, that others that come on the show talk about. And I think just you almost can't say it enough is objectives, audience, outcomes.
Absolutely.
Right? That's one way that you phrased it. I've heard it phrased other ways. But at the end of the day, my big gripe in the event and trade show specifically industry, even activation industry, is essentially that it becomes too much executing. It becomes too much redundancy. Let's do what we did last year. Or it's just kind of, you're stuck in the mud spinning tires. And my question to everybody always comes back. It always comes back to objectives, audience, outcomes, right? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Why does it matter to you? Where do we have to move the customer from here to here? What do they need to know? It's getting into the depths of those details and having clarity in my eyes that allows companies that are good at what they do, people like yourself, people like my company, to really execute very well. I love that you said that. And then what it kind of takes me to is you talked about the conceptual design phase of what you do, the beginning. And I think that's a little bit of like the pixie dust that people love, right? They want those thoughts. They want those ideas. So one thing is, we ran a survey with our audience, people that come on our live show bi-weekly, we run one and, we have a pretty good steady audience. Anybody's listening, show up, right? And we have a good podcast audience at this point. So we ran a little bit of a survey. And one of the things that I connected the dots to that I thought's perfect for talking to you about is some of the things that event marketers and event managers at corporate companies are struggling with. And here's 3 things I pulled from it. And I'd love your take on maybe you and I can workshop a little bit. Like, what are some things that we would recommend to, again, you have to remember, an event manager, an event marketer, a director of events working at a corporate company, right? So they're not the creative bone. They're the planner. They're the executor. They have a little bit of a marketing background, right? But they're wanting, from these surveys, the info we got back, they want to know more and they want to execute standing out more at events, at trade shows, at activations. They want to really further progress compelling marketing themes inside of what they do. And they want to draw traffic. They want to draw attention. And those things really stood out to me. So let's maybe you and I kind of workshop a little bit of, we know what we would do in the process and the way we take people through things, but like, what can these people do? What should they be thinking about? What should they be considering if they're wanting to improve on standing out, improve on compelling booth themes, and drawing more traffic to what they're doing? What would you recommend to them?
I'll start with the last one. And I think it's the drawing more traffic. And really, it comes down to there's the term many people are familiar with, but it's lead gen, lead generation. Are we actually like connecting and communicating with our customers, you can say, or our potential customers? It's not just thinking about I'm doing this event because it's kind of too late when we're on the show floor hoping people will come.
Yeah.
It's the 3 months, 6 months maybe of, we'll call it maybe pre-work of, do we know who our customers are? Do we have almost along the same lines as an editorial calendar that a magazine would? Hey, and let's say the event's in June. What are we doing in January? What are we doing in February? It doesn't have to be every single day, but having, I'll call it a plan of attack. So we have that lead into the event. The event, we could spend hours just talking about what makes an awesome experience. But there's also the lead out. So how do we get people excited before the event? The event happens, and then how do we keep their interest after the event? And then it becomes this feedback loop, this cycle of lead in, event, lead out, and lead out then crosses over to the next lead in. So from 2024 to 2025 to 2026, you have these different curves that are overlapped. So for sure, social media is super valuable. Putting message out, making it interesting, then making it fun, then making it interesting, then making it fun. Social media in terms of what you're doing, content creation. Are you sharing information in a really low barrier to entry way? Is it doing your own podcast, sharing your own information, putting stuff on social, on YouTube, actually engaging with your customers? That's really key, finding out what their wants and their needs are. And then after the fact, you have this awesome event. Do you have a film team on site documenting what's happening? Photographers that are documenting the engagements. Is there a way to share that with your audience? Everyone goes to the events, they have their phones out, they love taking photos, but not necessarily of themselves. So is there a team there that can capture some content and share it with people afterwards? Hey, I was there, check this out, look at me, I'm here, meeting with this person. So I think there's a lot of different things. Maybe I'm not being super specific, but really understanding what we maybe call a life cycle of an event. There are
Yeah.
3 phases. There's, okay, how are we getting people engaged, aware, even do they even know we're going to be at this event? Maybe not all of it's free to do that, but it's really critical. And then having maybe some sort of a feedback loop. Are we sending out a survey? Are we asking on the show floor, hey, what did you like best? If we don't get any feedback, then we don't know if we've hit the mark. We don't know if we're spending all this money on XYZ when everyone's really asking for ABC, then we're totally missing the mark. Are these events to chit chat and give out free coffee? That's great. That can work. Is it, no, I'm here to learn. I want to be hands-on. Put up some computers. Let me actually learn this stuff in person. There's many, many different ways to do it. But I think that's super key is, again, just knowing what your audience, who your audience is, what your audience needs, and really being strategic in terms of connecting with.
Yeah, I think towards the end there, you started dialing into, the audience, right? And I talk a lot of time with our customers about why is the great, who your audience is, right? I'm sure you have an ICP deck and you know that they're a ex manager or a director of this or that person, right? But like my thing, it always comes down to why are they there?
Exactly. Why
What
are
are
they there?
they? Yes, and you alluded to it there, and I think those differentiators are huge for the way that you design to go engage them. And it could be physical design, it could also be engagement of like the way that you're just talking and the setup and the way everything goes, your offer and how it all works. So, are they there to learn? Right? Are they there for networking? Like what are they there for? What is their primary focus of being there? And I think the more let's talk a little bit to people about like diving into the audience and starting with the audience before you design anything, right? I mean, how can
Absolutely. And I think
people get more
CES,
detail there?
CES could be a really good use case. So some brands spend a ton of money to be on the CES floor. They want a couple of different things. Number one, they want the media. They want photos of their stuff across every website, maybe print publication, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why they're there. And there's the whole other end of the spectrum where companies will rent just a giant suite and they'll have very private, intimate product reviews. Maybe again, it's only for buyers. If it's, we'll say CES, right? So it's going to be a lot of tech. Maybe, hey,
Yeah.
I only have 3 goals. I want to get the Best Buy buyer. I want to get Walmart. I want to get Amazon. That's what I needed. I haven't been able to break through it, but we're going to get the suite. I'm going to put people out there, do some guerrilla marketing, maybe a lot of buzz. just so I can get these three people to this suite and really show them without all the distraction what makes our whatever it is, makes our drone better, what makes our new hardware better, etc. So, and they're not meant, and they can work together. You can have a huge presence and then feed that up to the suite, which happens a lot. But really, again, like identifying what your goals are, what the outcomes are going to be. Is it because at CES is not really it's consumer electronics, but they're not letting everyone in. It's definitely an
Yeah.
industry, and
Yeah.
for the most part, it's a lot of media, which is very different from an auto show. Auto show is two parts, 2 days, usually 2 or 3 days of press days, no
Hmm.
consumers,
Yeah.
concept cars, everyone's in suits, really nicely dressed, launching all the new vehicles. It's really only for the media, get everyone hyped. Then they flip it, and it's all for consumers. Everyone
Yeah.
can come in, sit in the cars, take photos, play some activations, etc. So even, over the course of a day, or I'm sorry, over the course of a week, the
Hmm.
use case of this experience can change radically based on who the audience is. Press
I like
days,
that.
all about hospitality, free food, coffee, a
Hmm.
lot of all networking. Oh, hey, Sally or Jim or Steve, how's it going, etc. Then that shuts off, and it's all consumers. No real coffee, but it's fun. Hey, play
Yeah.
some games, here's some swag, less networking,
Mm.
but more like, okay, there's families that every year come to the LA Auto Show. They all come together. It's around Thanksgiving just to see what's new and
Hmm.
exciting, maybe test drive some cars. So even one, we'll call it one event, can have two, three, maybe 4 or 5 different reasons for existing and for activating.
I like that. You had, when we spoke earlier, we exchanged a couple emails, we had like a prep call, but you said something that we wrote down here that I wanted to kind of talk about. And it's that the best experiences blend marketing strategy with spatial design to drive an emotional, memorable interactions, right? So I love breaking that down into, because I agree, like they blend marketing strategy with spatial design, right? So, marketing strategy, in my eyes, you're talking about a point of view, a message, a value proposition, a problem that maybe you solve for the customer, a message you're trying to deliver to them to get them from point A to point C in the way that they see you, view you. There's a lot of other ways to describe it. That's just how I do in my own head, right? And then you talking about spatial design, that's physically what your eyes see, and then also what you smell, what you hear, what this concept of what you're walking into. And then
Exactly.
you start talking about driving emotional, memorable interactions. I always talk about, with our customers, I phrase just more so, I say meaningful engagement is what I'm looking for. I want you to meaningfully engage your customer, because I think if you can do that face to face, they walk away with either a better impression of you, further understanding what you can do for them, at a minimum, just further liking you or seeing you in a better light, which moves them along in their journey, or with very intentional events and processes and things that you navigate in here, you can move people through a pipeline. There's a lot there. So walk me through that, blending best experiences, blend marketing strategy with spatial design to drive emotional, memorable interactions. Why do you think that's so important for companies that are spending marketing dollars in the event space?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just market saturation. There's so many options for pretty much everything that's out there.
Yeah.
So, how do you stand out? What's distinct? How are you distinct? That's the first thing. Or your brand personality or your product, what makes your product distinct. So much of what we do, or I've done in the past recent years, is it's been really abstract. Stuff, the projects we would do for AWS, in terms of when I say abstract, is it's not necessarily something physical. AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's their
Hmm.
cloud computing division, their largest, I'd say, business unit under Amazon. You can't touch cloud computing. You can't touch data. It's there. It's running on everything on our phones, now in our cars, etc. So taking something that's very abstract and then manifesting it into something physical, it's a huge challenge year over year. But also the advantage is it makes it relatable. So
Yeah.
last year at their biggest event, it's called reInvent, 5 days in Las Vegas. They have all these sports partnerships. Amazon does. They're kind of the only one in that world that has all these
Mhm.
relationships. They sponsor NFL, PGA, NHL, et cetera, et cetera. And what really makes it so interesting is you might work in healthcare, you might work in maybe the food industry. I'm just kind of pulling these out. You might work in, well, something else. But if you
Mhm.
see what Amazon AWS is able to do with Formula One, maybe there's some things, oh, They're able to do that for Formula One. What can they do to transform my business? Oh, they do that with NFL, whether it's the fan experience, maybe it's broadcast related behind the scenes, maybe it's logistics, operations, etc. It makes it relatable and it actually puts it in perspective of, okay, this is something I can understand. This is something that I can probably apply to my enterprise business. So great. Who do I talk to? How do I get the ball rolling? How can I
Yeah.
transform my business and make it state of the art because we're still using spreadsheets or I have 50 people doing things and they're not all interrelated. So I think that understanding the what, okay, what are we trying to do? Like what? Not so, I mean, the why is important too, but what is this stuff? It makes it a lot easier if we're talking about a hair dryer or a cell
Hmm.
phone or car
Yeah.
tire. Hey, here's
Yep.
the thing. These
Do
car
you think people
tires,
struggle
they're
with that,
better in the
Stuart?
rain. Better. What's that?
Like, do you think people struggle with the system? Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm saying, do you think
No,
people
please.
struggle with the what? Like, I think what you're saying is correct. Like, when it's a
Absolutely.
product,
Unfortunately.
when it's a hair
Yeah.
dryer, it's easy, right? But like, when you get into, because when you're talking to me about what you did with AWS, if it's cloud computing or things that are abstract, you're saying, how do I come up with a story that we tell to a customer that they're like, oh, I got it. Like, I know how
Exactly.
this could benefit me. So, why do you think people struggle with the what? Because I think it goes back to a lot of the exercises talking about objectives, audience, right? Like outcomes. What are we trying to do here? People really struggle to narrow that down before they go execute something. And I find that they waste money just saying, oh, we want to do this event. Oh, we want to do this. And it's like, well, if you can't nail these things down, I really struggle to understand how you can do them really effectively, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I'm looking down because, some of this stuff has been thought of and talked about for decades.
Yeah.
And what are we talking about? Marketing, maybe advertising. This is a book that you can see. I've marked all these
Yeah.
pages. It's called Ogilvy on
You have a bunch of notes in there. Yeah, I
advertising.
see it. What's it called again?
Ogilvy, the guy that started the Ogilvy agency,
Okay.
it's really his book on, again, this is so old. It's so funny looking at some of these pictures and reading some of it, but it's foundational. What are you trying to do? I'm sorry, I forget. What was the question? I'm sorry. What was the question again? But
No,
I'll
no,
do an
no.
example.
I was just saying how when something's abstract, right? You're trying to tell a story, but essentially what it always comes back to is you were saying, what are we trying to accomplish? And it's
Yeah, exactly.
easy
That's
when
it.
it's
What are
like
we
a
trying to
like a
accomplish?
blow dryer or something, but essentially like when you have something, like a security company, AWS, right? Like a cloud computing, you have all these different, if they're services, not a physical like it, you and I both know from doing this, it's fun to work with physical products, right? It's fun. Somebody comes to you and they have a new coconut water, right?
Mhm.
Fun product to work with. Easy. You could do it in your sleep probably, right? But when someone comes to you and they have a service that is doesn't have that kind of vibe and feel to it, coming up with that what? Coming up with what are we trying to accomplish? What is the story we want to tell and how do we connect the dots? I think becomes really difficult for people.
Definitely does. And maybe there's a really easy way to talk about it. Does this product or service make your life easier?
Yeah, that's a good
Maybe it
question. Yeah.
does. Does your product or service make your life better? Maybe it does. Does your product or service make something cheaper? Maybe it does. And then the opposite of that, does your product or service make something more exclusive? Maybe so that not everyone. So going back to like some of this foundational stuff that's been talked about, the world of advertising for a long, long time. I think maybe some things have gotten like way, way overly complicated, which
Hmm.
is okay because it's a complicated world. There's a lot of stuff happening all the time, but there's still some foundational questions and some
Yeah.
foundational
Hmm.
understanding of very simple phrases or
Yeah.
like I said, questions that we can ask. And I don't want to keep going back to one or two different brands, but if we say Dyson as an example, yeah, Dyson, they know how does this product, it can be two things maybe, make my life easier
Yeah.
and make my house cleaner, make my environment cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay, that was his goal was to make, from what I remember, thousands and or hundreds and thousands of different prototypes of some sort of a bagless vacuum cleaner. That was the outcome, but it's to make a cleaner environment, right? To make our
Yeah.
houses cleaner, to pick up cat stuff. What's another example? I don't know. Could be some, I'm trying to think. SodaStream is maybe another one. Instead of buying bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles of free carbonated water, well,
Yeah.
can I just do this at home and like do it
Carbonate your
as
own
I
water.
need it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
the reason? Well, it's cheaper, maybe better for the environment, and I don't have to go to the store. I can just buy
Yep.
canisters. So some of them you can really break them down. I'm not saying this might apply to Boeing, but it might. Hey, we're going to make a plane that's $100 million cheaper than Airbus. It's going to be more fuel efficient, and it's going to seat more passengers, and and it's going to cost a little bit less. Well, those are huge things if you think about 10, 15, 100 planes. So I really think it can be applied to anything. If it's a Da Vinci robot for surgery, is it more precise? Patients come in and out faster, less
Yeah.
chance of, something else happening. Actually, I can't think of anything. I mean, even a coffee
Yeah.
cup. Is there a coffee cup? Is it going to keep my beverage a little bit warmer for 5 more minutes?
Hmm.
Okay, that might be a selling point. Or
Yeah.
keep, all these thermoses, keep it colder for 84 hours instead of 24 hours. Okay, it's going to do something.
Yeah.
So I think it really can be applied. On the flip side, sometimes it's just, hey, this thing looks dope. Looks better than anything else that's out there, like those
Hmm.
Stanley thermoses. Were they
Yeah.
better? I don't know. Were they cooler? Could I get the color that matches my car? Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna grab this. So yeah, I don't I it's kind of case by case, but again, some of these foundational questions or approaches, they still resonate more than ever.
Yeah. Let's switch gears into a little bit. Give me from a design tech standpoint, engagement, right? Let's talk a little bit about like what's different. What are people utilizing? What are designers designing into experiences to improve engagement in kind of the, activation, event, trade show, festival, whatever it may be? I mean, what's hot right now? I mean, what are people using?
Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah, sure. If you want to, go ahead. Let me
I'd
give
love
you
to, yeah.
yeah, go ahead. You should have the ability.
I'll give you just a couple quick examples. So, what are people doing? Well, I'll show you what we're doing. And I think after I've seen some highlights from Coachella, highlights from any other thing, we're seeing this a lot. What are we doing? Well, immersive experiences. We do this huge event in Las Vegas for AWS called AWS reInvent. 65, 70,000 people come. This is the Venetian. We have technology. Sure, we can think of any technology. 2024, just last fall, we created one of the longest immersive experiences that was what we'll call a welcome moment or an entry experience. It's AWS, state of the art. What are we doing to, leverage some new technology in new ways? Sure, we see LEDs next to us, now billboards everywhere, but how can we actually leverage this technology?
Yeah.
We laid flooring, synchronized flooring with these walls and made this incredible, super dynamic, high fidelity motion
Hmm.
media design that created these different worlds for
What a
people to
great, what a great energy. And for people that can't see, right?
so
Because it's,
much.
podcast, but essentially, they have this hallway at the Venetian where, the entire floor is LED tiles in
Mhm.
segments with LED tiles up on the wall. And essentially, it's not like there's like graphics and things popping out at you with brands and advertising. It's a vibe.
Exactly.
It's like colors and a flow, and it just creates this grand, fun, dynamic entrance.
Yeah, it sets
I
the
love that.
tone, really. It sets the tone that I'm
Yeah.
not in the Venetian anymore. I'm in a
Yeah.
whole other world. And
Yeah.
you can do this at small scale for maybe a 20 by 20, 50 by 50, or you can do it for massive scale inside of
Yeah.
maybe a hotel lobby. Something else that we've done, this was also last fall. We're on the leading edge of what's happening with generative AI in the visual sense. That's what we've been focused mostly on. So because of that, how can we actually, again, take something that's very abstract, Gen AI, this ChatGPT for writing, but visual. There's been some recent developments, people seen stuff on maybe LinkedIn or Instagram of people turning themselves into I'll say, action figure. People turning themselves into Studio Ghibli.
Yeah. I've
So
seen the
much
action figure.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we did, we created this real-time generative AI experience where it responded to attendees' movement. And not just
Hmm.
it responded in real time, but would, I'll say, reskin or restyle them. So we had 25 different looks that were sequencing throughout the day, things like architecture, environments, clay, still life art, etc. And it was a way again to, instead of just being this still thing on your computer, this was a giant 10-foot by 10-foot four-sided LED cube that you could dance in front of. You
Picks
could
up
just
on you when you're standing in front of it, turns you into an object, and then mirrors what you're doing
exactly.
essentially. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and just makes
Love
it
that.
fun. It makes it
Yeah, it
fun
looks fun. Yeah,
for environment.
it looks fun.
The year before, in that same area of the Venetian, we created this, I think the longest that I've ever seen, 200-foot long kinetic light installation. So again, the
That's beautiful.
same, setting the tone for each day
Yeah.
using color, using movement. There was audio, setting the tone of, okay, I'm in a whole new world. We also synchronized different color schemes for some of the keynotes, so it related to what the keynote was going to be and
Oh,
someone going
wow.
on stage as a way
How
of,
does that hallway react, Stuart? Like, how does it? Because I see the hallway, for those that can't see, it's basically a hallway in the Venetian with like truss rigged up, and then it has like these bulb lights. I mean, there's
Mhm,
probably 100+ bulb lights running down
thousands of them.
this,
Yeah, there
yeah,
were
running down
thousands.
this hallway. So you can, I get you can change color. You probably put music with speakers in there, but essentially, is there movement based on the people, based on the speed?
Hmm.
How is it changing? What is it actually doing?
Yeah, each individual unit has its own motor.
Oh, wow.
So what we're able to do is not just program color, but program everything almost as though these were three-dimensional pixels. So we were able to program the movement. And yeah, like you're saying, movement as I'm walking, let's say we're going east to west in the morning, walking towards the foyer or the keynotes are, drawing people in, motion that's drawing and guiding people visually. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, end of the day, doing the opposite, keeping the energy high because it's the afternoon and helping people exit the space, but get them excited for maybe there's some restaurant receptions, maybe there's some club nights they're going to, maybe they're going to a show.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit calmer at 8 o'clock in the morning, a little bit more active by midday for lunch, and then very
Mhm.
active into the evening as people are leaving. And
Colors, pace in
that's
which
the
it,
color, the
yeah,
shapes that
so
were
cool.
happening, the velocity that was happening,
Yeah.
the audio you would hear. I mean, all the four dimensional, a 4D experience, truly to
Very
um,
immersive. I mean, if you think
super
about it.
super immersive. Yeah, we
Yeah,
killed all the
you're
house
talking,
lights and able just
love
to
it.
use the colors of this to bring that
Yeah.
whole hall to life.
And it
So
changes the mood and tone. Like, well, like when you're, like you're saying, you think about an event, you have different parts of the day. You have different, you have different energies that you'd like people to feel. And essentially having that ability with those kinetic balls up there is really allows you to do a lot very simply in a way. Looks
well,
great.
simple in
Not
premise,
simple.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
very
Yeah. But
complicated in production.
for
Yeah,
the
I mean,
attendee, it becomes
huge team.
simple in the fact that they're just walking down a hall and it's a color that sets the mood with a tone or a music or movement in those lights. So it just feels like it's just happening around you.
And it's the engagement too. Everyone, not everyone has ever. I don't say we take it for granted, but we're familiar with this. But we're a very small percent. Most people have never seen this in real life.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their phone out. They're taking videos. They're taking
Hmm.
photos with themselves, with their company or their team. It's really something like they've maybe never experienced before. So again, it's going to be memorable. They're going to say, "Wow, what are we going to see next year?" And then the next year,
Yeah.
you saw this immersive hallway. Oh my goodness, what am I going to see next year? And that's what we're working
Hmm.
on right now is for 2025. But this is I'll say the last one. This was a couple years ago, but you see LED, just flown LED, but what
Hmm.
can even LED, you can do so many really interesting things, creating these immersive experiences through scale and through the visuals that we put on the LED. So using some non-flat, we've curving elements, some geometric shapes that are out there, synchronizing media to the lighting. There's just so many different layers of fidelity that we have at our disposal now to create just exciting and super dynamic experiences that I'll say it again that people haven't seen before. Maybe they've never even
Yeah.
seen online.
The content creation for the video walls and what's out there is really what's so important. How are you
Absolutely.
utilizing it? How are you leveraging it? Because you can build structures, walls, curves, shapes, so many different things nowadays. So it becomes what is the content? Is it a vibe? Is it a mood? Is it a message? Is it a game? Is it an interactive play with AI? Like what is it that you're doing? And I think as like just to bring people backwards for a second, as cool as some of this stuff is kinetic lighting, right? LED floors, like some of this stuff is so cool. But if you don't have objectives, if you don't understand your audience, if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, sometimes it can all be for nothing. Or it's a lot of
Absolutely.
flash with no meaning, right? With
Hmm.
no like it doesn't make any sense. So I think all this stuff is super cool, but I think at the end of the day, it does come down to those basic principles for sure.
Yeah, and that might be that's again, that's a rhetorical question for ourselves.
Yeah.
Cool, but why?
Hmm.
We can do
Yeah.
whatever we
Love it.
want, but
Love
why are
it.
we doing it? Well, this is state-of-the-art experience. Oh, okay, that means something. These are the people that they're around technology all the time. They expect to see something maybe they haven't seen before or they've maybe only heard about. Okay, that's another reason. How do we distinguish AWS from Salesforce, from Google, from Microsoft? What are they not doing or what are we doing that, they couldn't even think of? So there can be. I mean, yeah, and like you said, this is not Billboard. There weren't big branded messages, there weren't logos on
Yeah,
here.
not at all.
It's
No,
just
there's no
setting up.
branding.
Yeah, this was all about setting
Mm.
a transitory experience. I'm no longer in the real world. I'm now
Mm.
at AWS reInvent.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's a huge thing. And then it guides you into the rest of your experience,
And that
not just
goes
here,
back to
across the campus.
that whole piece you're saying there is what do you want people to feel? What do you
Yeah.
write? And when you know that, then you can plan what this hallway looks like or what,
Hmm.
what all this does. Stuart, tell me a little bit about, I'd love to talk with you about AI a little bit because I think
Okay.
AI is interesting when it comes to the creative aspect of what it's capable of, where it assists, what it can produce. Right. And I think people have a lot of misconceptions. I think people know the basic functions, ChatGPT and basically hopping in there and asking it to do stuff. And, but creatively, how do you use it as a creative director? What are you doing in there?
Well, I'll just start with this. I've never been more excited creatively than now because of tools that you might know the names of, and probably a lot of tools that the audience or my colleagues have never even heard.
Mhm.
So, what are we doing? What can you do with it right? Well, I'm not going to focus on ChatGPT or Claude. I use Claude for text because I think that's self-evident. I ask a question, I get an answer. I need help on something, they're kind of all, well, it's kind of like an intern or an
Yeah.
assistant. That works
Yep.
great. But creatively speaking, we're visual people.
Hmm.
So the tools that we're able to use is I have been implementing it since Mid Journeys, I think on seven, mid since version three. I mean, it's been almost 3 years now.
The journey is awesome. Yeah.
Midjourney is great. I use Midjourney. Stable diffusion is incredibly powerful. I can show an example or two of that. There's some other platforms, Korea. There's some really incredible platforms which you can actually upload a 2D image and it can understand what that is and create a 3D model from that.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's cool.
it's not perfect, but 6 months, a year from now. So, bottom line, what is the point of this? Well, we don't get more time in the work we're doing. Sometimes we get less, but we're
Yeah.
able to generate what I like to call concept art. They're not production designs, but we have ideas, of course. Maybe we're sketching something. Maybe we're just doing photo bash. Maybe we're doing image research. We can now use all of that and feed it into some of these tools. And I'm happy to show an example or two. And as opposed to being, a lot of the design work we have to do is be what I like to call explicit. If we want something, let's say in a rendering, we need to put it there. We need to design it. These
Hmm.
AI tools now, we can do stuff maybe only putting in, I don't want to say less work, but a portion of what's required. And the AI can fill in the rest of the story because we're giving it a story. So that's where creative writing, understanding language, using adjectives, but being descriptive, which is why, again, what's the story? The story is still super important. The story is what helps us bring these ideas to life. So with AI and the concept development, mostly it's that, not so much in production, at least not
Yeah.
yet. But hey, we're able to generate all different variations, countless variations in a short amount of time, and also create this feedback loop, create some ideas. Hey, these are really interesting. These are all garbage.
Yeah.
Let's take these interesting ones, feed it back in the system, see what it generates. Round two, round three, round four. Last month, I did 7,000 generations of
Wow.
a project to get three
Hmm.
images for, well, three images for three concepts that I presented in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
So is it easy? No. Is it one magic button? No. Does it take some time to understand how these
Oh
platforms
yeah.
work? Yeah. But are the outcomes worth it? Hell yeah. Because instead of imagine, this is not the final thing, but this is where it can go.
It's a
And
direction. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like really anchor it into a direction. So it's just an incredibly powerful tool. I mean, the cost is negligible. That's
Oh
another
yeah.
thing too, what we're able to do and the speed. And whether it's me doing it, whether it's my team doing it, we're able to, multiply the amount of output we're able to get through these concept rounds. And I mean, the to really get ideas that you might not, frankly, you just might not hit on. You might not land on those, but through traditional means. And by traditional means, it's Pinterest board. Okay, this is what we want to do because everyone's in the same world. Everyone's
Hmm.
sourcing the same Google images, the same Pinterest images. Where's all the freshness coming from? Freshness comes from looking outside of those things and applying some new methods and approaches to the creative process.
Yeah, I like that you can talk to it, right? So if you like we use it a lot for like mood boarding type things or just to
Hmm.
start to develop an idea and then
Hmm.
show somebody a direction, right? But
Exactly.
but what I think is interesting about it is when you start playing with like Midjourney or something, right? To your point, when you go to Google and you go to images and you type in something specific, it's going to show you everything just like that. Right. So you're like leading the witness. You're like asking for something specific from it. Versus when you go to AI, you could say, hey, I need to build out a mood board for A, B, and C for this company. And and then you just start plugging in all the details. This is what's important. This is the directionally what we're thinking. You can just from your brain, from your mind, because a lot of times, I mean, because we do creative work for our customers in their trade show booths, when you talk to somebody, they have a general idea, especially if they're a decision maker, of what they're wanting at times. They can articulate it with words. What they can't do is show you. So
Yeah,
now for me, I tell people all the time, like, go on, ChatGPT, Midjourney, whatever versions you got that you can get there, start talking to it. Start coming up with images. Show me something that you see that you're like, I love this. I love the colors. I love the palette. I love the direct, you know what I mean? And like you can start to formulate it. And I think it's a great tool for people that need things designed and laid out for them. You can also challenge it, ask it things, say, hey, I don't love conventional style auditorium seating. I need to do something different. I want to be outside the box. Do you have any ideas? This is how many people. This is what the room looks like. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to articulate through it.
definitely. What the point that you just made is there's a point in the project that we're curating. We're gathering visuals,
Yeah.
curating what this mood board is. Now we have the power to actually take those images, use and feed those into the visual systems. Say, here's all my references. I'm just making this up. Here's some images of Frank Gehry's architecture. Here's some
Mm.
images of Audi vehicle
So
cars.
specific. I love that. Yeah. The more
Yeah,
specific, the better. It's amazing. Yeah.
sure. I have 10 images of Frank Gehry. I have 10 images of Audi cars. And I'm not really sure, let's just make this up, Nike retail, 10 images of that. I'm not going to get too technical, but we've heard the expression of a model
Hmm.
or a checkpoint. That's a little bit more of a technical term for what these are. There's also these things called styles or LoRa's, depending on the platform you're using. But now you can use this imagery. You curate your own imagery, package it up, and create your own model, create your own style so that you're
Yeah.
not even limited by, Midjourney is a very general model. It's got to do everything. Stable
Yeah.
Diffusion, other platforms that we're using, no, I want to get a model that's architecture specific. I want to get a model that's environmental or exhibit design specific. Great. Now I want to layer on Audi influences and Nike retail stores. I can show
Hmm.
you a quick example of just, one or two things and then get outcomes that are completely unique. I want to show you this one thing because I think it's really a great
Sure. Go
example.
ahead. Yeah.
I have a bunch of stuff on my Behance page, and if you want to put some links in there, you can.
Okay.
But this is a great example. So this is on here. This is using Stable Diffusion. We use Rhino, and
Yeah.
one of the
I
big
know.
things, like I said, explicit design is if I want to tell a visual story traditionally, I need to put every single thing in there, and then I need to render it. Great. It takes so much time. But what if I don't even know? And this is just a silly example, but in Rhino, what if I just do some mass or block studies? This is very simple. I took some shapes, I twisted them, I stacked them, put some other shapes, and then I fed it into a custom, I'll call it a network, because that's what it is, a network. Maybe you've seen it of different nodes connecting in stable diffusion, for example. And from this simple black and white line drawing, I could say, make it a skyscraper. And it did.
Yeah.
It filled in all of this information. It would take, I can't imagine how long it would take to get this level of detail.
So long. Hours,
So
hours and hours.
same exact, just a screenshot, same exact screenshot. Make an
Yeah, it's the
underground dance
same.
party. This is all for me. Now, I'm not saying you hit a button. You need to curate, and then this
Yeah.
is I forget what it was, but like a future outdoor sports or basketball on
Agree.
Mars,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Yeah, so it's the same thing. So imagine doing that with anything that we're doing. If you have an idea for maybe blocking out a shape, blocking out what you want for an
Yeah.
exhibit, maybe not the graphics are perfect, but take this information and give me some variations of what this is possibly able to do.
But I'm just thinking if your brand, I'm just thinking like R in my Rockway brand is a very prominent R, like the name Rockway. You
Hmm.
could basically take the letter R and leverage that shape 3D as an R into something like that. Right. And how do
Absolutely.
how do you use it? Because what you're doing there is you're just taking shapes, putting them together. Obviously, you had an idea of the direction you were going with it, but then what it's able to do with it from there, it just looks creative. And now you're saying, this is what I want to do with it.
But it's also you're able to get more, way more with actually less. This video here is doing something in real time. This is a capturing real-time screen animation from Rhino, feeding it through this network, and it's doing some calculations, basically getting an outline, and then this in this example, translating into, let's say, a cyberpunk city in the future.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of basic shapes, but it's creating everything, the environment, the mood, materials. There's grass
Colors,
here, there's
lighting,
atmosphere,
add in
exactly all of
plugins.
these
Yeah.
things. And then one other last thing is, and there's some other stuff that's already advanced, but maybe you found some image of something that you really like. This is an image from the second Tron movie,
Yeah.
and I just did some studies where I wanted to, I'll call it restyle it. So did I wanted to restyle it using just some not random, but you know, interesting imagery. And the same thing, maybe you had last year's trade show booth and you say, hey, it's time for something new. Okay, cool. Maybe we have a new brand guideline. Here's a photo of stars at outer space applied to that same environment. So
Mhm.
for a concept art type of experience, we can create some incredible visuals. And they're very different, but we're using a setting. And then,
That's
I
cool.
mean, this is, a painting. It's extracting colors, applying them. This is just some, I don't know, chemistry image, applying it. But very, 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 this is a famous painting of Napoleon. Just extracting information and reapplying it, even to the level
Yeah.
of, hey, there's a media wall, what the materials are, etc. So there's just so many
Well, if
amazing
you have a
things.
vision and you have examples and you have like it allows you to speak to it and plug stuff in and then just show
Exactly.
you something where you can then like I think the alteration when you're creating, and we've done it with trade show booths, right? Well, we'll enter the information, ask it to design a trade show booth, and then from what I find is that the how you alter it going down the line is very important. What you
Steering.
prompt
I
it to
like to call it,
do.
yeah, I could say steering. How do
Yeah.
you steer?
Yep.
You get your result, and maybe it's kind of okay, but
Yeah.
it's not quite right. You want to steer it in different ways, steer it through maybe the colors are used. You can even steer it from thinking like a director. I think the director part is really key. Terminology that we're familiar with from wide angle, bird's eye, front elevation, we can use that terminology. And that's why I think understanding the creative ideas and the language that we use, art language maybe, I think is also critical, is you're going to get like incredible results just by understanding how to communicate what your ideas are. Is it daytime, sunset, sunrise, wide angle? Is there low level haze? Do I want ambient lighting? Is it,
Yeah.
all of these different things have a huge impact on the outcome. So as a creative person, again, if we can
Feels
get
limitless
exactly
to a
what we're
degree.
imagining, if we know how to say and explain and
Yeah.
communicate what we're imagining. And that it's never been like that before. So I'm super
It's
excited,
awesome.
and the outcomes are amazing. The outcomes are
Yeah.
amazing.
No, thanks for sharing that stuff. That's really cool. Really cool examples to see. And I think as, people get more comfortable, I would just urge people like if you're listening to this and you're not a creative, just get a ChatGPT license. Start using Midjourney a little bit through that, right? Like no, they use Wall DAL-E is what ChatGPT uses, right?
Yeah, I mean, depending,
That's the image
um,
creator.
I'm not sure exactly what the back end is, but if someone is interested in doing this, I think Midjourney is a great place to start. It's a
Yeah.
great catch-all model. You can do a lot of stuff. You can do your kids' birthday cards, and you can also do
Yeah.
retail environments.
Yeah.
But there are some more sophisticated tools. But I think just getting comfortable, understanding how they work, understanding also they have their own kind of approach to language.
Mhm.
So if you ask ChatGPT, I think now you can upload an image and say, describe this image for me.
Mhm.
Then it can describe it. Then you can take that information, modify it as you want, put it in Midjourney, and then get an outcome. Hey, replace everything that's green with stainless steel. Oh, okay. Wow. This is actually
Yeah.
pretty close to what I want.
It
Plus,
just does it.
feeding it images. Hey, here's a retail store. Here's an airline interior. Blend these together. I want
Mm.
something, along these same lines. So we could spend a whole hour, we could do a whole master class just explaining like all the
Yeah.
different ways of doing it. And then of course, for the work that we're doing, cool visual, but what can I do with this? Okay,
Yeah.
are we able to get that information and turn it into a model, translate it into different views for a client, for an RFP,
Yeah.
for approvals, all these different things. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
man,
would
I'm
really recommend
so hyped.
like a mid-journey type for some people. They have a creative brain. They know what they want. They know what the layers, the look, the vibe, the feel, the details of what they're kind of going for, the direction. And I think for those event people, Mid-Journey is a great buy because they can just
Absolutely.
say, "Hey, I'm hosting this dinner and I really want it to have this like industrial warehouse feel, but then
Hmm.
my goal is to liven it up with some natural
Hmm.
colors and like you can just talk to it and it'll show you and then you now have that to go to a supplier vendor partner. So I think it's for me it's a great tool for event people that kind of can think that way and have all those details in there for sure.
Yeah, if I could add, I'll do that two
Yeah,
quick
good.
things. Number one, this is now available to everyone.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
for creative people, it's a great tool. But if you're a producer
Mm-hmm.
or a producer coming up or a producer that has creative leanings, use these tools. Come up with
Yeah.
ideas of your own and share them with your creative team. Not instead of, but hey, or maybe with the creative team, you're alongside of them. They're empowering. They're super, super empowering. Number two
Yeah.
is anyone can be their own little creative studio now. If you are a creative person, you have a producer, that's your friend, like you're saying, for maybe a dinner event, something that's maybe not trade show or huge tech conference that requires an army of people,
Mm.
but two people can go and do things because you have the ability to leverage these tools to help you with a work back, help you with budgeting, help you with visuals, help you with
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Hey, ideas for content, ideas for really anything. Respond to RFPs. So I don't want to pull the sheet back too much, like curtain back too much, and say anyone can do
Yeah.
anything now. But really, it's what's possible. It's super exciting. So it's not reinforcing these silos. I think hopefully it's going to open these silos up so that people can do new things. I know there's a lot of producers that are have a creative leaning. So great.
Yeah.
And the same thing, a lot of creatives want to actually get the most out of what their ideas are and not be limited by maybe their vocabulary or what they know
Mhm.
about lighting or special effects or stage design. Now they can bring it to life and show it to the LD or the TD and say, this is actually what I really want. I don't know the hardware you wanted. I don't know JDCs or I don't know the
Yeah.
color
But this is what
bars,
I'm
but
looking for.
this is what I'm looking for. Help me bring it to life.
Yeah.
So it's just,
It's cool
yes,
stuff.
game changing. It's such a cliche, but totally, total game changer for
No, I
this whole
think
way of working.
I think it is. I feel like we could go on for this forever. And
Of
frankly, I think
course,
you might have some people listen to this where we might have to bring you on for a live show and actually run through something like
I love that, man. Totally.
Mid-Journey, do examples and get
Yeah,
people to, maybe we could do something live where we do some
exactly.
prompts where we get some people saying, "Hey, I'm hosting a dinner and I have this idea," right? Or, "Hey, I'm hosting a intimate 20-person event and this is," or, "Hey, we're doing a big 3,000 person," or, "Hey, it's a trade show booth." And maybe we could work
Hmm.
through it a little bit with people.
Absolutely. That's gonna be
But Stuart,
awesome.
thanks for doing this today. You were great. I love the combination, the way your brain thinks. You understand marketing, you understand the message, the goals, what's desired by marketing. You understand that there's steps to it. There's pre, there's post, there's these stages to events that where marketing gets plugged in. And then of course, creatively, you understand how to garner attention. You understand how to tell a story. So I thought you kind of brought that together nicely. So thanks for being with us today. And yeah, thanks for coming on, man.